Today I want to be talking about how your core self is going to save you when you allow it. It's going to be a very practical episode, talking about the benefits, how tapping into core self really changed my life, and then I will share with you the stages of how you can get there, because this is what I work with every day, and this is the core, pun intended, of all of my teachings. So let's get started. I would like to start this episode by sharing a personal story, which is like, I really love this story because it reminds me of some fun times. So for about 10 years I lived in London before moving here to beautiful Portugal, and I met a lady there, a girl, a woman who was equal age to me, and we connected very quickly. She was very quirky, she had all the fun ideas, she was creative as I am, and one time she told me a story how her dance teacher told her, and he kept repeating apparently, the core will save you. These magical words, that the core will save you. And she joked around that it was probably some sort of metaphor, not only talking about the core muscles that are obviously so important for stability, for confidence and all that stuff, but that he probably meant something else. And at this time I had already healed a physical disease that I had struggled with for a number of years, and I did it solely by using the power of mind and reconnecting to my core self. And I knew that it was definitely some kind of a metaphor, although I didn't know if the teacher thought that. Either way, I was thinking about it lately because the magical words, the core will save you, keep coming back even after maybe now around 10 years since I heard this, or 9 years. And it's kind of a very good phrase to remember, to keep getting back to self. So what do I mean by talking about the core self when I talk about it? First of all, I want to mention that talking about the core self is at the core of all my teachings. Like, literally, I guide women to reconnect to their core self. So it's not something I just talk about lightly. It's my passion. It's literally something I believe in so much, that this is the healing force. This is the force of wisdom. This is the force of life-giving energy when we can tap into it, because it's like this inner GPS that really navigates you to where you should be aligning to when you are straying off path. And it's always that wise self, it's always that wise higher self part that we commonly refer to as a higher self, but it's something that really resides inside of you all the time. It's not something esoteric, it's not something woo, it's completely real. And when you get to tap into this aspect of you, you will know what I mean. But first of all, I want to start by giving you a little bit, like, really tangible benefits, how that looks like when you tap into the core self. Well, it took me several years to get to that point. I had ins and outs. I had moments when I was connected to the core self in the times of my crisis and my healing. There was this guiding force, but I was not doing this consciously yet, because it was through my own experiments, through my own other practices that aligned me to it. And sometimes I was just passing the core self and crossing my path with her, but I couldn't consciously tap into that force. But when I manage to do that over time and I keep getting back to it and I live from it most of the times these days, I know exactly the benefits of it. So I will list some of them now before I get into talking what is my process of aligning to a core self. Okay, so I want you to get a full picture of this topic so that you come out of this episode with some ideas of how this can be helpful in your own life. When I talk about core self, it's that part of you that is unchanging. It's expanding, yes, but it's unchanging. It's not like your personality or the ego that you identify yourself with, that is changing over time based on what you choose to identify yourself with or what you think might be more useful in this world. But the core self is like this wise core that is always flowing with that amazing source of information, with that amazing life-giving powers. And it's something that we all have, obviously, for the whole of our life, and we can tap into this when we know how and when we choose to. So what are the practical benefits? The practical benefits of tapping into the core self, definitely one of them is going to be reducing or eliminating the self-doubt that you might be having. So in the world where people are constantly seeking external validation, and it originates from seeking acceptance, fearing rejection, and all that we all have to go through, coming from the indoctrination and conditioning as children. But we mostly, as people, as humanity, don't grow out of this, okay? And people have this habit of seeking external validation constantly, which makes them doubt their own wisdom, which makes them doubt what they want, what they think, what they can do, what they're capable of, whether they're worthy or not. So this constant self-questioning, this constant overthinking, this constant paralysis analysis where you're stuck in not being able to make up your mind because you are constantly on the fence between this or that, and you are looking out for answers. Ideally, you would want someone to grab your hand and show you what you're supposed to do so that you feel safer. But the core self, what she does, she guides us from within, and we get to settle when the sediment settles. We get to settle to hearing that voice often, and it's something that really navigates us to making better choices, so you can really reduce that self-doubt. And for me, like, this was so practical. I was constantly second guessing, and if you are that kind of person, trust me, it's something that is completely life-changing when you know how to validate yourself, when you know where you're going. And all of a sudden, here is the second benefit: you stop caring about what people say, what they have to say, what they will say, what they might say about you. So it brings another benefit, which is courage to do what you want to do, because you don't fear so much of being judged. You don't think about like, oh, these people are going to judge me because I look like this, or because I talk like that, or because my opinions are so quirky, they're so out there, and no one really gets it, so how am I supposed to share it with others? I'm going to be completely rejected or ridiculed, and no one is going to trust my authority. When you tap into core self, this like completely disappears. It completely disappears because when you stand your ground, it's like you have this core. It almost feels like it goes through your feet down to the core of earth, and you're just like, you're so stable in the ideas, you're so stable in your opinions, you're so stable with, you know, the voice that you have with your truth, that you stop caring about what other people say or think. I'm not saying you're going to stop caring about people in general, because definitely that wasn't the case for me, and that won't be a case for anyone that is, you know, concerned about this. But you will be disconcerted about, you know, other people's opinions that could be holding you back, that could be limiting your free expression. And again, for me, that was a game changer. And, you know, I just have to drop in here the fact that it's not something that happens overnight, like you tap into your core self and now all of this will switch on. It's a process, and it has to be a conscious process of assimilating these powers, becoming conscious of how to listen to them, and integrating this, you know, fine-tuning yourself to that vibration inside of the core self. So what is another practical benefit that you get from tapping into your core self? This is like the most amazing thing. It's self-love. Basically, in my own personal life, I had so much anxiety, and I always, you know, I was a strong person, I was very independent, and I always tried to make things work. But really, when I look at it from the hindsight, it was basically my trying to assure safety through control, through being ultra independent, through doing everything on my own, through overworking, through overgiving, and doing all these things that kind of create an illusion of control in our life. And what it gives away is the lack of trust in the support of the universe, right? So I discovered, I don't know how many years ago, but I discovered that I was really trying to control reality. The anxiety was resisting life. It was literally resisting the unfolding, and I spoke about it in my one of the recent episodes, so feel free to go back to it. This really helped me eliminate that anxiety as well, because when I tapped into that self-nourishing essence, it's like you become your best friend, you become the highest, more evolved parent of yourself. And this is practical because it allows you, again, feel safe, not resorting to trying to control things, not resorting to the coping behaviors such as pleasing, or such as playing small, or all these things that are basically coping things such as perfectionism and all that. All these are coming from fear of being rejected, right? So if you give yourself that love, if you can connect with that essence of you, therefore you feel nourished from within. Again, that is similar to not seeking external validation, but it's something really fulfilling from within. And how it helped me as well was that I was much better able to gauge what is enough, because progressively and quite quickly I became enough. I saw myself as completely valuable and perfect human being. So I didn't have to overwork, for example, which was my big tendency. I didn't have to try and save people, which, you know, there were aspects of it in my thinking. And, you know, I was always thinking that I have to be available for others and things like that. And when you feel so nourished from within, then you have a better gauge, you have a better way of telling where is enough, where you should stop, where you should withhold your energy. It gives you a better idea of how to navigate your energy, what you should give, what you shouldn't give, what you should ask, when you should stop working, when you should take breaks, who you want to engage with, and in terms of people. Does it feel like, a person who is nourishing as well? So you start wanting to mirror that in relationships as well. And because you have modeled this self-love, then your demands are higher. I remember I recorded a video on YouTube talking about the breakthrough that happens when you start loving yourself. And this is actually, it's a spontaneous feeling that starts happening, that it feels like I just want the best things for me. I want the best relationships. I want my work to be the most pleasurable and enjoyable for me. And then based on these really strong impulses, that these become your guiding value in making decisions. There you start making decisions for your life to be designed in such a way that really matches this. So, years ago when I found this in myself, I started redesigning completely my business, where it was functioning, was perfectly good, it was completely independent, it was successful in all many different ways, but it was not completely making me happy, was not giving me that all the time joy that I wanted. So I started doing some changes, and I couldn't do that had I not had that guiding value that tells me I just want and I just choose all that's best for me, and I'm not going to compromise for anything less. When you feel so worthy, when you feel so valuable, so amazing, then your choices and your decisions are going to be much, much better. And then you start creating the life that starts mirroring those values outside. And this is what I live. I put so much intention in making any choices. It's much more automatic right now. I hardly ever have to consider these questions, because I simply do what's best for me. And this will be your guiding force. It will be your guiding value when you tap into that real self-love, and you can really recognize that you love yourself by having this guiding force. I only want what's best for me, and I'm not going to compromise for anything less. And even before you get to that point, you can start building that habit of making these choices for your best benefit, for your greatest good, aligned with your core self potential. And you can do this by downloading the free guide. You can follow it every single day, and you can see how your life is changing little by adding these new choices into your life. Now, how anyone gets to that place to connect, to tap in, to tune in that core self part of you? Well, I will give you maybe 4 or 5 stages how you can get there. And not coincidentally, these are stages and aspects that I work through with my clients, because these are the stages that are consistently helping people to get to that point that we want. Okay, so the first stage, I really want to talk about getting in tune with your body. This is the essential part, because we cannot tap into something that is really deep inside of you unless you go past the discomforts and the tensions in your body. So we are mostly living, like our consciousness is mostly focused outside. So you are constantly focusing on these things that are happening, like these circumstances. You are all the time troubleshooting. You are all the time reacting to these people. You are focused on doing, on performance in work. You are tracking these things. So the focus of an average person is external. And we need to focus you internally. To do that, you need to find a way to go past different levels of your mind body so that you can get closer. You can go past the discomfort. And this is the very important part. So embodiment is the word that we call it. There are different modalities that use embodiment in probably different ways than I do, because the thing I am doing, this is something I created from my own experiments. This is what works for me, but you can do any form of embodiment that will allow you to get closer to that settled, quiet place inside of you that allows you to sit in stillness and be comfortable and be nourished by this. Okay, this is what you're looking for, more or less. And you know, you don't have to get to the perfection. It's never about perfection, but you need to settle into your body and get grounded. Another step or stage is going to be observing and retraining your ego behaviors and coping mechanisms. So you have to become aware of how you're used to reacting to circumstances and deconstruct these constructs. Okay, we build our external selves, our ego, as a form of defense to help us survive. Okay, throughout childhood and young adolescence, we build up this armor that protects us from the world, and it's showing up and manifesting through different behaviors, through different tendencies, through different personality traits, such as some of them I already listed. So perfectionism, overworking, people pleasing, low self-worth. Actually, ideas and beliefs are part of it as well. So these are part of a construct self, and this is, you have to become aware of the construct self as opposed to the core self, which is intact, which is real, which is holding your truth. So in order to get to your truth, you want to see what is not true, right? You need to start observing and be able to see when the ego is playing up, so you can actually start separating these two. You cannot tell that you are in a core self unless you know how to distinguish it, right? So if you are not working with me, you know, look up ego work, look up anything that allows you to challenge your limiting beliefs, do some shadow work, right? And all these things will be helpful for you to observe and disintegrate some of the constructs, the defense constructs of ego. And the third stage I want to be talking about is building trust in yourself. So you cannot have self-love, like in any relationship, you cannot have love without a trust, right? This is common sense, and is something you probably know already when it comes to relating with people. But it is really exactly the same when it comes to relating to yourself. You need to find a way to trust yourself. You can start by testing your opinions and speaking them out loud, and become more assertive about voicing your truth, voicing your boundaries, and voicing the things that matter to you. So standing your ground and really guarding this. And over time you will be able to see that, okay, I actually do as I say, so I can trust myself. And you start observing that the promises you give to yourself, as in the values you start following, as in what you do for yourself, you will be able to observe that it starts to be noticeable how nourishing this is to have someone that is so reliable in your life, right? And again, for me, I really needed this. I really, really needed this, because for me, I felt this constant lack of support in life. It felt like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. I couldn't trust anyone. Even I had close people in my life, but I could not really feel supported, right? And that is something really in common that I had with pretty much all of my clients that come to work with me. So if that resonates, really, really focus on building that self-trust for yourself. And one last stage I have for you to share is self-validation. I love talking about self-validation. I've done so much work lately and writing and research on validation, on the inherent value, on the perception of a value in so many different areas of life, that I think this is such an underrated topic to talk about. Validating yourself is of essence if you want to tap into the core self, if you want to love yourself, if you want to stop doubting your choices. Because if you validate what you say, then no one else can contradict you, because you will see they can have their own opinion and you can have your own. This is so common when people are not self-validated, when they have low self-worth. They would change their mind when they are in a group of people. They would ask them about, what do you think about this? What do you think about what I did? And you know, the worst of the questions I've heard so many times, unfortunately, is, how should I feel when this happens? When you come across in your mind this question, this is really, really a high indicator of you having close to zero of self-validation. When you ask another person how you should feel in this situation, this is really a call for you to urgently start validating yourself. And I recorded some video a while ago. I recorded an episode a while ago, how to self-validate. So you can go back to it, because it's really important. And just to get you started, all you need to do is to first observe how you feel, what are your values, what are your opinions, and really decide, make up your mind that you're going to stand by these no matter what people tell you about this. The person who stands their truth, who stands by their truth the longest, always wins. Imagine yourself in negotiations, for example, and you have an idea of the price you want to get paid for something. And other people tell you, well, the service you have is not worth this. Or someone says, the product you have, I wouldn't pay for that more than this, right? And if you don't stand by the value you have to give, then you would be quickly starting to doubt what you have to offer. And therefore you will start doubting your opinions. You would start doubting your decisions and all these things. And then you start doubting yourself. Like, who am I to say this value? Who am I to say my service is worth this amount of money, right? It's exactly the same with self-validation. And it really is expressed even in negotiations, in selling, in offering, in relating to others. Because if you know that you are valid as you are, that you don't have to prove yourself, that you don't have to explain yourself, that you don't have to convince others, then they will be questioning their choices. They will be questioning their opinions, and they will be questioning their sense of value, because you stand by what you say. You stand by your value. You stand by what you validate, which could be your thoughts, your emotions, your opinions, anything that you decide to validate, right? So really, really, this is the most important of all. I probably said this about each one of the stages, but it is really, really important. And if you were just to take these 4 steps and practice them on everyday basis, I have no doubt in my mind that your life will change. So I hope this has been useful. I hope some of these will show you where you have not been aligning with your core self, because when you do these things, you will start aligning to your core self perspective. And obviously you need to know how to listen to it. You have to recognize what it says, and you have to find that stillness every day to connect with it. So you need some sort of journaling process or meditation where you can reconnect with yourself, and this is going to be the outlet, maybe in the beginning, definitely, that you can connect with that inner voice, inner power, and just see how your life is changing when you allow the core to save you. You can only use its force and the wisdom when you know how to listen, when you align, when you use that nourishing force. When you ignore it, when you continue being externally focused, you are missing all the goodness. It's as if you have this super giving source of energy right next to you, but you are not drinking from it. Your face is turned like away from it, and you can't, like, you're just simply not getting it. You're not getting all that nourishing, you're not getting that sustenance, you're not getting any of that, right? So you need to tap into your core self to reap all the benefits I listed, and there is way, way, way more, but it all happens by showing up every day for yourself, and it will happen if you do it by making these aware choices, by becoming intentional and really practice this every day. And if you want to go deeper, if you really want to focus on your personal transformation, reach out to me for one-on-one coaching. All the links are in the description of this episode. For now, I hope it has been useful. I hope it's been inspiring. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you soon.